Get ready for a gripping tale of power, prejudice, and poetic justice at one of the busiest airports in the world. White cop demands ID from a black woman, not knowing she's the head of airport security. Welcome to a story of raw power struggles, hidden identities, and swift justice, set in the bustling corridors of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Can you imagine the shock when authority meets accountability? At first glance, it seems like a typical day, passengers scurrying between terminals, flight announcements echoing overhead. But beneath this ordinary setting lies an extraordinary standoff. A black woman, quietly minding her business, is demanded to show her ID by an overzealous officer, unaware that she's actually his new boss, the head of airport security. What unfolds next is a torrent of drama, deception, and fate's ultimate reckoning. Buckle up and prepare for a roller coaster story on dark stories. Early morning sunlight spilled through the glass facade of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, illuminating throngs of travelers rushing to catch flights. Some clutched coffees and bagels, others tugged wheeled suitcases across gleaming floors. A continuous current of motion and chatter drifted through the concourse, punctuated by periodic flight announcements. In the crowd was Janelle Brooks, a tall, poised black woman in her mid-30s, with hair styled in neat, shoulder-length locks. She had arrived quietly, wearing a crisp navy pantsuit, holding nothing more than a medium-sized handbag. Beneath her calm exterior, she was alive with anticipation. It was her first day as the head of airport security at Hartsfield-Jackson. As she made her way from the domestic arrivals area toward the administrative offices, Janelle paused deliberately at a bustling kiosk. She could have flashed her special ID and breezed through employee-only corridors, but she wanted to soak in the passenger experience, the essence of what she'd soon be overseeing. Airports were not new to her. She'd been in aviation security for over a decade, but this airport was legendary for its size and complexity. If she succeeded here, she'd solidify her reputation as one of the top security experts in the country. A man in a brown jacket bumped into her, apologized quickly, and hurried on. People swarmed around her like bees in a hive, business travelers, families, college students returning home. For a brief moment, Janelle let the hum of the airport lull her, reminding her why she loved this environment. It was a space of constant transitions, and her job was to keep it safe and efficient. She glanced at the large digital board listing flight departures, even though she had no flight to catch this morning. The sheer scale of the operation took her breath away. The airport's bustle, the synergy between staff and security teams, the complexity of preventing threats, all of it invigorated her. She permitted herself a small smile. She was ready for the challenge. But what happens when vigilance turns into bias? A short distance away, Officer Craig Sampson, a seasoned airport security officer, surveyed the crowd. He had served at Hartsfield-Jackson for nearly 15 years, transitioning from the local police force when the pay and hours proved more tempting. He was known among co-workers for being aggressive, often stopping travelers for minor infractions. Some whispered he walked a tightrope between commitment and overstepping boundaries, others called him a bully with a badge. Sampson noticed Janelle, her steady posture, her understated confidence. Something about her presence was unusual, he thought. She looked like she knew the airport intimately, yet she appeared to be traveling alone. Unconscious biases, developed over years of profiling, led him to a quiet suspicion. She was a black woman, impeccably dressed, but not displaying the hurried demeanor of a typical business traveler. Why was she lingering around departure boards with no luggage aside from that handbag? Stay tuned to Dark Stories to find out how this tense encounter unfolds. He continued to watch from a distance, eyes narrowed, hand hovering near his radio. He told himself he was just being vigilant, but a deeper truth pulsed below the surface. He relished moments when he could flex his authority, especially over individuals who didn't look like the typical high-powered executives he was used to catering to. It was a pattern he rarely reflected on, but it was evident to many colleagues. Janelle remained unaware of Sampson's scrutiny. She was busy observing how passengers navigated ticket counters, making mental notes about signage, queue lengths, and staff courtesy. To improve the airport's security posture, understanding the layout from a visitor's perspective was essential. After a few minutes, satisfied with her initial assessment, she turned to head toward an elevator to the administrative suite. She had barely taken 3 steps when Sampson intercepted her. Standing tall in his uniform and protective vest, his posture radiated intimidation. "Excuse me," he said, voice firm, eyes cool. "I need to see your ID." Janelle frowned, perplexed. "Is there a problem, officer?" "We're doing random ID checks," Sampson stated brusquely. "Standard procedure." He wasn't entirely lying. Random checks were permissible under specific conditions. However, in this case, he had zero evidence that Janelle posed a threat. He was acting on a hunch, shaped by stereotypes more than actual suspicious behavior. Janelle reached into her handbag for her driver's license, handing it over without fuss. She noted his name on the badge, Officer Sampson. She also noted the tension in his jaw, the flicker of unwarranted suspicion in his eyes. Though she had no immediate intention of revealing her new position, she wondered if he'd eventually recognize her from departmental announcements. Regardless, she had nothing to hide. Sampson's gaze flicked from the license photo to Janelle's face. "You from Los Angeles originally?" "Yes," she answered. "I'm recently relocated here for work." "What kind of work?" She arched an eyebrow. "Airport operations." He handed back the license with a stiff motion. "You got any luggage you're traveling with?" "No, I'm not traveling today," she said calmly. "Just going to the administrative offices." He paused, as if searching for a reason to prolong the encounter. "Any reason you're hanging around departures?" Janelle's heart beat a little faster, not out of fear, but indignation. She was used to airport security culture, but this scrutiny felt personal. She decided not to challenge him openly, not yet. "Just getting my bearings in a new place." Satisfied that he couldn't legally extend the stop, Sampson handed back her license and jerked his chin in a dismissive nod. "All right, move along." As Janelle continued toward the elevators, she felt a swirl of emotions: annoyance at being singled out, a hint of sadness that these biases were so ingrained, and a flash of determination. If Sampson's approach was any indication, there were cultural and operational issues she'd need to tackle in her new role. Her focus, however, remained on the bigger picture, ensuring the airport's safety and fostering a professional, equitable environment for travelers and staff. When she arrived at the administrative offices, she checked in with a young receptionist. "Good morning," Janelle said, offering a polite smile. "I'm Janelle Brooks, here to see Director Caldwell." The receptionist's eyes widened. "Of course, Ms. Brooks. The director's expecting you. He's in the corner office down the hall." Janelle nodded her thanks and moved through a sea of cubicles before spotting an older gentleman with silver hair, wearing a tailored suit. "James Caldwell, the airport director." He stood and extended a hand. "Ms. Brooks, it's a pleasure," he said, voice warm. "I trust your flight from Los Angeles was smooth. Welcome to Atlanta and Hartsfield-Jackson." She returned his firm handshake. "Thank you, Director Caldwell. I appreciate the opportunity." He gestured for her to sit. The office, decorated with framed photographs of the airport's expansions, exuded history and ambition. "We're thrilled to have you on board," Caldwell continued. "Your track record at LAX and Chicago O'Hare is impressive. Hartsfield-Jackson is a giant puzzle, but with you at the helm of our security department, I'm confident we'll remain at the forefront of aviation safety." Janelle nodded, settling into a seat. "I look forward to meeting the teams and understanding the ground realities. I've done some preliminary observations in the concourse already." Caldwell raised his eyebrows. "Oh? And what did you see?" She hesitated, not wanting to start her first day with complaints. "I noticed a few potential areas for improvement: long lines at peak times, signage that's a bit unclear. Also, an officer who seemed overly vigilant toward me." Caldwell gave her a knowing look, pressing his lips into a thin line. "Overly vigilant, you say?" Janelle shrugged. "I was randomly stopped. It could be routine, or it could be something else. I'll learn more before I draw conclusions." Caldwell clasped his hands. "If you ever feel uncomfortable or notice unprofessional behavior, let me know. We want to root out any patterns of bias or harassment." That's part of why you're here, to foster a transparent, professional environment. Though it was a subtle conversation, Janelle sensed his sincerity. Caldwell had a reputation for modernizing the airport and forging alliances with major airlines. His direct approach indicated he was keen on institutional integrity, a good sign. Understood, she said. Shall we get started? They spent the next hour reviewing her duties, the chain of command, and top priorities, implementing advanced scanning technology, refining crowd management, and stepping up security training. Janelle listened attentively, chiming in with her past experiences. By the time they finished, she was energized, eager to meet her team and begin her new role. As she walked out of Caldwell's office, her mind returned to Officer Sampson. A fleeting thought, would he find out soon that the woman he stopped was his new boss? She didn't relish humiliating anyone, but she couldn't ignore the possibility that his approach was a symptom of a bigger problem. Time, she told herself, would reveal the truth. Meanwhile, Officer Sampson had returned to his station near the security checkpoint. His encounter with Janelle lingered in his mind. He didn't know her name, but her calm confidence unsettled him. Airport operations, she'd said, too vague. He disliked not having all the answers, especially when it concerned someone he found suspicious. He checked with a colleague, Officer Martinez, who was scanning IDs. Hey, you see a tall black woman around here, dressed in a navy pantsuit? Mid-30s, maybe? Sampson asked. Martinez shrugged. Not sure. Why? I stopped her earlier, but something's off about her story. Keep an eye out. Martinez sighed. Craig, you sure it's not just another random traveler? We've got thousands every hour. Sampson bristled. I know what I'm doing, Martinez. She said she worked here, but I'd never seen her before. Martinez was well aware of Sampson's instincts, which often translated into singling out certain groups. He decided it wasn't worth an argument. Sure, man, he replied, focusing back on the next passenger. Thus, the seeds were planted for a budding conflict, an officer clinging to unwarranted suspicion and a newly appointed head of security determined to bring transparency and fairness to the world's largest airport. Little did Sampson know, his own future was about to be upended in a way he never anticipated. The following day began at the crack of dawn. Janelle arrived at Hartsfield-Jackson while the sky was still grayish-blue, the sunrise lighting up the horizon. She wore a tailored black suit, determined to project professionalism as she formally met the security staff under her command. Her newly assigned executive assistant, Asha Wilson, greeted her outside the security administration wing. Morning, Ms. Brooks, Asha said, juggling a tablet and a manila folder. She was a petite woman with a warm smile, well-versed in airport bureaucracy. I've scheduled a briefing with the entire security division. They're expecting you at 7:30 sharp. Perfect, Janelle said, stepping into the hallway leading to a large briefing room. Let's make a strong first impression. When she entered, the murmuring chatter died down. About 20 officers and staff turned to face her, some in standard security uniforms, others in suits indicating supervisory roles. Janelle took a position at the front. Good morning, she said, voice carrying a calm authority honed over years in leadership. I'm Janelle Brooks, your new head of security. I look forward to collaborating with each of you to make this airport the safest and most efficient in the country. She launched into a concise overview of her background, her tenure at LAX, her success at streamlining security training in Chicago, her philosophy of treating every passenger with respect while maintaining uncompromising standards. As she spoke, she scanned the faces in the room. Some looked impressed, others wary, a few openly curious. When she wrapped up, a spattering of applause followed. She offered a small smile. I'll be scheduling one-on-one meetings with each team lead to better understand what you do and how we can improve. My door is open. As the group dispersed, Janelle's eyes fell upon a tall, broad-shouldered figure in the back, staring at her with barely concealed shock. Officer Craig Sampson. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. He recognized her now, the woman he'd stopped the day before. She saw his face drain of color, replaced by a creeping flush of humiliation. She offered him a polite nod, turning away before he could approach. Samson was reeling. He could scarcely believe it, the passenger he'd singled out was his new boss. His mind churned with defensive justifications. He'd been doing his job, performing a random check. Still, he sensed the precariousness of his position. If she complained about him, his record of questionable stops could intensify any disciplinary action. After the briefing, he cornered Officer Martinez near the break room. "You won't believe who that woman is," Samson muttered, darting around to ensure no one overheard. "Remember I told you about that lady I questioned yesterday?" Martinez sipped his coffee. "Yeah, the one you thought was suspicious?" Samson pressed his lips into a thin line. "She's the new head of security. Our boss." Martinez nearly choked on his drink. "Are you kidding me?" "I wish I was." Martinez lifted his eyebrows. "Look, if you were polite and followed procedure, maybe it won't be a problem." Samson tensed. He vaguely recalled the dismissive way he'd told her to move along, as though she were an unwanted interloper. He said nothing, but his expression spoke volumes. Martinez let out a low whistle. "Well, good luck, man." Over the next few days, Janelle immersed herself in understanding the airport's security infrastructure. She walked each concourse, introduced herself to staff at every checkpoint, and familiarized herself with surveillance rooms and protocols. She quickly noticed that while many officers were professional and courteous, an undercurrent of fear lingered in the ranks: fear of making mistakes, fear of stepping out of line, and a silent acceptance of heavy-handed tactics. Her approach was different. She believed well-trained, confident officers who felt respected were less likely to overreach or discriminate. She wanted a culture shift. "We need to strive for an environment where say something doesn't turn into suspect everyone who doesn't look like you," she told the leadership team in a small meeting. "Our watchers need watching too, meaning I want transparent checks on our own methods." Some members nodded enthusiastically, especially younger supervisors weary of the old guard's habits. Others were stoic. When the meeting concluded, Janelle slipped away to begin scheduling one-on-ones with staff at various levels. Eventually, it was Samson's turn. The appointment came through Asha. "Officer Samson, Ms. Brooks would like to meet you in her office at 3 p.m. tomorrow." He felt his stomach plummet. However, not showing up wasn't an option. The following afternoon, he found himself in Janelle's office, a modest space with a large window overlooking part of the runway. He recognized her tidy desk and simple decor. She sat behind it, reading something on her computer screen, but looked up the moment he knocked. "Officer Samson," Janelle said, voice pleasant yet formal. "Please, come in." He took a seat, trying to maintain a calm exterior. The door closed with a quiet click. Janelle leaned forward, folding her hands on the desk. "Thank you for meeting with me. I'm holding these sessions to get to know our team members, their concerns, and their ideas." "How long have you been with Hartsfield-Jackson?" "About 15 years, Samson replied. She nodded. "You must have seen a lot of changes in that time." "Yes," he said carefully. "Procedures, technology, expansions, lots of changes." "Do you enjoy the work?" He shifted in his seat. "It's what I do best. Keeping this place secure." Janelle studied him. She didn't mention their first encounter yet. "Tell me about your day-to-day. What do you think we do well, and where can we improve?" He cleared his throat, reciting standard praises for the airport's training protocols and advanced screening systems. When it came to improvements, he hesitated. "We could, do better with crowd control sometimes. Maybe more staff at peak hours." Janelle tilted her head. "Valid point. I'll keep that in mind. What about our approach to passenger relations? For instance, random ID checks, how we handle potential profiling concerns." Her question felt like a tripwire, and Samson's pulse quickened. "I believe in following protocols," he said. "If you see something suspicious, you act. Race or appearance shouldn't matter, but if your gut says something's off, you check it." A flicker of emotion passed through Janelle's eyes. "I agree that we shouldn't ignore genuine suspicious behavior, but sometimes unconscious bias can influence who we perceive as suspicious. What do you think about that? He bristled slightly. I trust my instincts, ma'am. They've served me well in the airport for a long time. She exhaled softly. Instincts can be a double-edged sword. They can protect us, or they can mislead us. Finally, she leaned back, tapping a pen lightly on the desk. Officer Sampson, do you recall stopping me at the departures board a few days ago? It was out in the open. He swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Janelle regarded him, her face calm but serious. Would you mind sharing why you stopped me? He found himself at a loss for words. You were standing there, not seeming to be in a hurry, no visible luggage, so I thought it was worth a quick ID check. And do you typically stop everyone who stands at the departures board without luggage? He flinched, knowing the correct answer was no, but tried to keep his voice steady. Not everyone. It was just a random check. A silence settled between them. Janelle chose her words carefully. In the future, I hope you'll be more mindful. True security must be methodical and unbiased, or we risk losing the trust of the people we're meant to protect. He nodded stiffly, reading between the lines. She hadn't threatened him or mentioned disciplinary measures yet, but the message was clear: watch your step. Over the next couple of weeks, Sampson attempted to tone down his confrontational style. He made an effort to comply with new guidelines introduced by Janelle, which emphasized documented reasons for any ID checks beyond security checkpoints. Unofficially, he seethed with resentment. He felt the new head of security was trying to tie his hands. He prided himself on knowing who might be trouble at a glance, an approach that had gone unchallenged for years. Meanwhile, Janelle threw herself into implementing more structured protocols. She wanted a data-driven approach. If an officer conducted a random check, the reasons, time, place, and what triggered the suspicion had to be recorded in a simple digital form. This would help track patterns. Was a single officer consistently stopping more people of a certain demographic? That data would reveal the truth, no matter what personal biases might try to hide. Her efforts were mostly well received. Younger officers liked the clarity. Veteran officers grumbled about red tape but followed orders. Sampson, however, nursed a deepening bitterness. In small huddles with like-minded coworkers, he railed against the changes as catering to political correctness. But behind the scenes, Janelle had begun to gather stories, anonymous tips, passenger complaints, internal feedback about Sampson's track record. She was disheartened but not surprised to see that her experience was not isolated. If the data corroborated these accounts, it meant Sampson had been profiling travelers for years under the guise of instinct. Though tension simmered, daily operations continued smoothly for a time. Janelle worked long hours, forging connections with other departments, baggage handling, airline liaisons, and the TSA. She gained respect by stepping onto the floor and working alongside her team, even in mundane tasks like screening lines, to demonstrate she didn't see herself as above the gritty side of security. Yet Sampson's resentment grew. He noticed Janelle speaking to colleagues, poring over data on her tablet, sometimes jotting notes when she passed him at a checkpoint. He felt scrutinized, cornered. In his mind, he was the victim of a personal vendetta. Thus, the stage was set for the next dramatic act, a confrontation that would shake the airport's halls and define both their destinies. Janelle, guided by truth and reform, and Sampson, entrenched in old habits and paranoia, were on a collision course. The question wasn't if something explosive would happen, but when. A few months into Janelle's tenure, winter arrived, bringing cold winds and occasional storms to the Atlanta area. But the real storm brooded within the security division itself, like a ticking time bomb. Tensions between Sampson and the new protocols were primed to explode. Janelle's data-driven approach had started to produce tangible results. The system tracking the who, why, and when of random checks revealed a glaring imbalance in Sampson's records. He was stopping Black, Hispanic, and Middle Eastern passengers far more frequently than travelers of other backgrounds, even factoring in legitimate suspicion. The numbers were damning. Worse, passenger complaints, some from years prior, surfaced. Before Janelle's arrival, these complaints often sank into a bureaucratic quagmire, overshadowed by the airport's emphasis on security at any cost. Now, however, Janelle's office brought them to light. The stories echoed her own experience: individuals singled out without cause, sometimes harassed or humiliated, all at Sampson's hands. When Janelle reviewed these findings with Director Caldwell, he sighed heavily. "This is serious," he said, laying a hand on a thick stack of documents. "We're looking at a pattern of profiling." Janelle nodded. "I'll need to confront Sampson, possibly place him under official review. But you know how these cases can get tangled with union protections." Caldwell removed his glasses, rubbing his temples. "Do what you must. Document everything. If we let this slide, we fail our moral obligations, risk lawsuits, and tarnish our reputation, not to mention the potential for him to escalate." She agreed. They planned a formal performance review meeting, one that could lead to Sampson's suspension or termination if he had no credible defense. Unaware of the specific charges about to be leveled against him, Sampson sensed trouble. Over recent weeks, he'd been summoned to smaller check-in meetings with Janelle or other superiors. The atmosphere was rife with tension. He noticed subtle changes: colleagues who once admired his toughness became distant, while a few discreetly warned him that he was under scrutiny for profiling. He felt cornered, and it fueled his anger. One chilly Friday evening, when passenger traffic was heavy with weekend travelers, Sampson stood near the main security checkpoint, scanning the crowd. He noticed a black man in his 20s, wearing a hoodie and carrying a backpack decorated with various patches, some referencing political causes, others from different countries. Immediately, Sampson's instincts kicked in. He looked suspicious. His mind conjured up reasons to stop the young man: bag too bulky, or perhaps he was glancing around nervously. But in truth, Sampson had no real evidence, only his prejudice. Still, he stepped forward, intercepting the traveler. "Excuse me, sir," Sampson said. "I need to see your ID and boarding pass." The young man, Tyrese Jackson, looked startled. Sure." He handed them over, glancing around. "Something wrong?" "We're conducting random checks," Sampson replied, though the new protocol dictated that random checks must be truly random or prompted by a specific, documented concern. He had neither, but old habits died hard. As Sampson scrutinized the ID, boarding pass, and Tyrese's bag, he found nothing suspicious, yet he refused to let it go. "Where are you traveling to?" he demanded. Tyrese shifted uneasily. "New York, to see my family." Sampson narrowed his eyes. "What's in the bag?" Clothes, a laptop." "Why?" "Open it up." Tyrese hesitated. "Is that really necessary?" "I just went through the X-ray, and everything was fine." Sampson bristled at the pushback. "Open it, or I'll have you detained for refusing a search." A bystander overheard the raised voices. A small crowd paused to watch. Tyrese, anxious not to miss his flight, unzipped the backpack. Sampson dug through personal items in front of everyone, a humiliating process that ended in no contraband found. The onlookers whispered among themselves, a couple even took out cell phones to record. Seething with humiliation and frustration, Tyrese finally asked, "Are you stopping me because I'm black or something?" Sampson snapped, "Watch your mouth. I'm the authority here, and I can stop anyone who fits a suspicious profile." Unknown to Sampson, Janelle had been in the vicinity, conducting a routine observation of the checkpoint. She saw the confrontation from about 20 feet away. Her heart sank as she recognized Sampson's stance: bullying, authoritarian, with no legitimate reason. She quickly walked over. "Officer Sampson," she said, her tone authoritative but measured. "Is there an issue?" He turned, saw her, and nearly froze. "Ms. Brooks, I'm handling a security matter here." Janelle's gaze shifted to Tyrese, who looked both embarrassed and furious. "What's the suspicion?" she asked pointedly. Sampson stumbled. His bag looked unusual. "I had to check." Janelle's eyes flicked to the bag. Standard, no sign of suspicious items beyond the normal security scans. "But he passed the scanner, correct?" "Yes, but then you should have a documented rationale to stop him again." "Protocol is clear, Officer Sampson." He ground his teeth, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. The onlookers sensed the drama, some still filming. Tyrese zipped up his backpack, stepping aside. Janelle turned to him. "I apologize for the inconvenience, sir. If you have any further issues, please speak to a supervisor or directly to my office. Officer Sampson, you're relieved from this post for the moment. Please follow me." With that, Janelle guided Sampson away, leaving Tyrese free to go, though visibly shaken. The crowd dispersed, but not before a ripple of hushed commentary filled the air. Once they were in a private hallway near a staff room, Janelle turned on Sampson. "This has gone far enough, officer. I've seen the data, I've heard the complaints, and now I've witnessed firsthand how you handle random checks." Sampson's face flushed crimson. "I was doing my job." "That kid, you had no valid reason to suspect him of anything," Janelle cut him off. "We have a strict protocol for random checks, and you violated it." He glared at her, his voice shaking with pent-up anger. "You've been against me since you got here. You're trying to sabotage me, all because I stopped you that day." Janelle's jaw tightened. "This has nothing to do with personal vendettas. Your pattern of profiling is clear. You're abusing the authority granted to you, and you're tarnishing this airport's reputation." He took a step closer, voice low and threatening. "You think just because you're head of security, you can destroy my career? I've been here long before you and your fancy data. You don't know what it takes to keep this place safe." Janelle refused to be intimidated. "I know exactly what it takes, and intimidation tactics, racial bias, and disregard for protocol are not part of it. Effective immediately, you're under administrative review. You'll remain off active duty pending the outcome." Sampson glowered, breathing hard. "You'll regret this." "I'll take my chances," Janelle said calmly. "Return your badge and official airport credentials to the security office by the end of the day." She walked away, leaving him in stunned fury. He was suspended. In his mind, he'd just lost a battle, but the war wasn't over. Fueled by pride and resentment, Sampson began plotting a comeback. If he had to drag Janelle's name through the mud or find a way to prove she was incompetent or biased, he was willing to do it. Janelle, meanwhile, felt a burden lift but was bracing herself for backlash. After the confrontation, she composed a detailed incident report and shared the broader findings with Director Caldwell. She requested an expedited review, explaining that Sampson posed a liability not just to passenger welfare but to the airport's credibility. Caldwell agreed and promised swift action. Behind the scenes, rumors spread like wildfire. Some officers quietly cheered that Sampson had finally been taken down a peg. Others worried about what it meant for their own instinct-driven stops. A few rallied to Sampson's side, claiming Janelle was turning the airport into a soft environment that coddled travelers at the expense of security. In the swirling undercurrent of tension, only one truth was indisputable: the next steps would be decisive. If Sampson was officially fired, it would set a precedent for accountability. But if he managed to twist the narrative or find a scapegoat, Janelle's reforms could be undermined, and the problem would only fester. Hartsfield-Jackson carried on planes taking off and landing in a relentless dance of modern travel. Passengers hurried to gates, announcements blared, and life went on as if nothing had happened. Yet, in the bowels of the administrative corridors, a game of high-stakes chess was unfolding, a game that would determine the airport's moral compass for years to come. Sampson wasted no time appealing his suspension through his union representative. He claimed Janelle was targeting him unfairly due to personal bias. He argued that he'd stopped criminals in the past using the same methods she now condemned, and his track record proved he was acting in good faith. He also hinted that Janelle might be overcompensating to appear neutral, given that she was a black woman in a leadership position, an ugly insinuation that enraged those who heard it. Behind closed doors, the union pressed the airport's legal department to reconsider the suspension. "Officer Sampson has dedicated 15 years to this airport," said the union rep at a preliminary hearing. "He's been recognized for detaining multiple individuals who were found to have warrants or contraband. We need a fair, unbiased review of his case, not a rush to judgment." Janelle sat across the table, flanked by Caldwell and an HR representative. She countered, presenting the data showing Sampson's disproportionate targeting of minorities, specific passenger complaints, and the footage of him harassing Tyrese, who had no criminal history or suspicious items. She also included a record of her personal encounter with Sampson. The union's eyes narrowed as they scanned the evidence. They recognized that public opinion, especially in a city like Atlanta, would quickly turn against an officer proven to be profiling. A hush settled over the table as they realized this wasn't a trivial matter. "We will conduct a thorough investigation," concluded the airport's legal counsel. Officer Sampson remains on suspended status with pay for now, pending the outcome. In the days that followed, Sampson retreated to his home, stewing in anger and fear. He vented on social media, posting cryptic rants about leadership losing sight of real security and enemies within. Some posts bordered on paranoia, accusing certain people of staging a witch hunt within the airport. The chatter was intense. Some officers sympathized with Sampson, claiming the new push for data-driven checks was burdensome and second-guessed their gut instincts. Others sided with Janelle, praising her for addressing a long-standing issue head-on. Tyrese, the passenger Sampson had harassed, posted his cell phone video on YouTube. It quickly gained traction. The clip showed Sampson rifling through the bag, ignoring Tyrese's protests that he'd already cleared security, then Janelle arriving, calmly intervening. Public reactions were swift and fierce. Some demanded Sampson be fired immediately, others defended him, claiming the clip was out of context. News outlets sniffed out the story. Reporters reached out to the airport's PR department for statements. A hush-hush environment quickly became a storm of media interest. Caldwell and Janelle huddled with the PR team, deciding how to respond. They released a brief statement affirming the airport's commitment to unbiased security, acknowledging an ongoing internal review of an officer's conduct. While Janelle remained poised at work, privately, the ordeal took a toll. Late nights in her apartment were spent emailing the legal department, cross-checking passenger logs, and responding to a barrage of messages. She had anticipated that confronting systemic bias wouldn't be easy, but the vitriol and personal nature of some criticism still stung. One evening, as she sat on her couch staring at her laptop, she received a call from her mother, Mara, in Los Angeles. "Baby, how are you holding up?" Mara asked gently. Janelle mustered a shaky laugh. "I'm fine, Mom. It's tough, but I knew this might happen." Mara's tone turned worried. "Just remember, you can't fix everything in one go. Stay strong, but don't forget to take care of yourself. You're the best judge of what's right." Her mother's words hit home. Janelle realized she was in the fight of her professional life and maybe more than that. She promised herself she wouldn't let exhaustion or fear derail her pursuit of fairness. Despite the tensions, many staff members rallied around Janelle. Younger officers, in particular, appreciated the clarity her new protocols brought. Officer Janet Park, who had once felt uneasy about how some colleagues profiled passengers, approached Janelle with words of gratitude. "I've seen Sampson in action," Officer Park confided. "He'd question people who were just minding their business. I was always afraid to speak up." Janelle nodded, giving her a reassuring smile. "Thank you for telling me. If the investigation board requests testimony, your honesty could be crucial." Park swallowed. "I'll do what's right, ma'am." Encounters like these reminded Janelle why she had taken this job. The fight against bias wasn't just about punishing a single officer, it was about shifting the entire culture. If the next generation of security personnel felt safer standing up for what was right, then real change could happen. As the official hearing approached a closed-door proceeding where Sampson could present his defense, tensions reached a fever pitch. Whispers circulated that Sampson had hired a private investigator to dig up dirt on Janelle. Some rumors even claimed he planned to sue her personally for defamation. Janelle couldn't confirm any of it, but she knew she had to be prepared. Asha, her ever-diligent assistant, knocked on Janelle's office door one afternoon. "Ms. Brooks, there's something you should see." She held out a printout of a social media post. It showed a doctored image of Janelle wearing a mock uniform with the words "Fake Security Chief" emblazoned across it. The caption read, "A puppet installed to weaken real security." Hashtag take back our airport. Janelle's stomach turned. Hate was rearing its head in the digital realm. She took a steadying breath. It's disturbing, but it's not going to stop me, she said, voice resolute. Asha nodded. I figured you'd say that. Just wanted you to be aware. Also, the media has been calling again, asking if you'll make a personal statement. I won't, Janelle said. We'll let the formal airport statement stand until after the hearing. I don't want to jeopardize the investigation. She thanked Asha and returned to her work, though the hateful image lingered in her mind. Fear and anger skittered through her thoughts, but she channeled them into unwavering determination. Samson might lash out, but the truth was on her side. A few days before the hearing, Janelle convened with Caldwell and the legal team to finalize the evidence. They compiled comprehensive data, logs showing Samson's disproportionate stops of minority passengers over the past 5 years, passenger complaints, verified incidents describing similar behavior, many containing official statements from travelers, video footage, not just Tyrese's viral clip but also internal CCTV capturing Samson harassing other passengers without cause, and witness testimonies from officers Park, Martinez, and others who had observed Samson's conduct. Caldwell skimmed the thick dossier. This is substantial. If we present it clearly, the review board will have no choice but to recommend termination. Janelle tapped the file, her eyes serious. Let's hope so. He'll fight like a cornered animal. On the morning of the hearing, tension rippled through the airport's administrative offices. Samson arrived with his union representatives and a grim expression, refusing to meet anyone's eye. Janelle entered, wearing a subdued gray business suit, carrying the dossier. Caldwell joined her, along with 2 members of the legal team. Inside a large, windowless conference room, a panel of 3 neutral arbitrators, selected from outside agencies specializing in airport security disputes, sat at a long table. The hearing was formal, reminiscent of a courtroom without the public gallery. Officer Craig Sampson, one arbitrator began, you stand accused of repeated violations of airport protocol, including discriminatory profiling, unjustified searches, and unprofessional conduct. Today, we will hear evidence from the complainant and your defense. Please understand that the decision of this board will be final regarding your continued employment at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. Sampson's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. The union rep mumbled an acknowledgement. Janelle steeled herself, her heartbeat thrumming in her ears. She thought of every passenger Samson might have wronged, of every traveler who'd left the airport feeling harassed or unwelcome. This was the moment to show that accountability existed. The arbitrator motioned for Janelle to present her case. She stood, introducing herself and her position, then methodically outlined the evidence. She described her own encounter and played video clips capturing Samson's questionable stops. She presented data graphs illustrating how his search statistics were anomalies among the entire security staff. Officer Park and 2 other officers testified, recounting times they witnessed Samson ignoring protocol or specifically targeting minorities. Samson sat stiffly through it all, at times glaring, at times shaking his head in denial. When it was his turn to speak, he portrayed himself as a vigilant officer unfairly singled out by a new wave of leadership that didn't appreciate true security. He painted Janelle as an ideologue more concerned with appearances than genuine safety, pulling out stories of criminals he'd allegedly caught as proof that his methods worked. Yet his evidence lacked real data. The few examples he cited were overshadowed by the volume of documented misconduct. His attempt to question the authenticity of the CCTV footage fell flat. When the union rep tried to pivot the argument to claim Janelle had a personal vendetta, Caldwell quickly corrected the narrative by showing the timeline of passenger complaints predating Janelle's arrival. By the end of the day-long hearing, the weight of facts was overwhelmingly against Samson. Janelle sensed the board's mood shifting decisively. The room cleared for the arbitrators to deliberate. Samson gathered his papers, scowling at Janelle. He leaned in as he passed her. You think you won, he hissed under his breath, but don't forget, the moment something goes wrong with security, the blame's on you. You'll wish you never crossed me. She met his glare without flinching. I'm prepared to face whatever comes, but rest assured, prejudice isn't going to protect this airport. Professionalism will. He stormed out, leaving a tense silence. Janelle felt a tremor of lingering fear but also a calm resolve. Win or lose, she had acted out of principle. A week after the hearing, the arbitrators reconvened, sitting at their elongated table. They addressed both parties in a subdued conference room. The lead arbitrator began with a formal introduction, then got to the point. Upon reviewing all evidence and testimonies, the board concludes that Officer Craig Sampson repeatedly violated airport security protocols. Specifically, we find consistent, documented behavior that constitutes racial profiling and abuse of authority. Such conduct is incompatible with Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport's guidelines and with federal anti-discrimination mandates. He paused, glancing down at his notes. Effective immediately, Officer Sampson's employment is terminated. He will not be eligible for rehire in any capacity within the airport's jurisdiction. A collective hush fell. Sampson's face turned ashen. The union reps exchanged resigned looks. Janelle exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She felt the tension in her shoulders lessen, replaced by relief and perhaps a touch of sadness. It was never pleasant to see someone's career end, but justice had to be done. The union rep stood, offering Sampson muttered words about filing appeals or civil suits. Sampson got up slowly, shoulders slumped. As he walked out, he threw one final glare at Janelle, full of rage and humiliation. She held his stare without blinking until he was gone. Caldwell turned to Janelle. "You did the right thing," he said quietly. "It wasn't easy, but necessary." She nodded, absorbing the enormity of the moment. This public accountability would send ripples through the airport staff. The message was clear: discriminatory practices would no longer be tolerated. A few days after Sampson's firing, local news outlets ran stories about the case, featuring interviews with Tyrese and other passengers who felt vindicated. The airport statement highlighted the efforts to improve training and oversight. Public opinion was largely supportive of Janelle's decision, though a vocal minority decried what they called political correctness run amok. Then, in a twist of karma, Sampson's personal social media rants and conspiracy posts found their way into mainstream view, painting him as increasingly unhinged. Old acquaintances shared stories of how he'd boasted about harassing certain people to appear tough. Even some union members admitted he was a liability. Whatever sympathy he might have garnered evaporated under the glare of public scrutiny. For Janelle, it was a confirmation that she'd uncovered more than just a single officer's misdeeds. She'd exposed a mentality, one that thrived on fear and bias. By rooting out Sampson, she hoped the rest of the security team would be less inclined to continue such harmful practices. In the months that followed, Janelle redoubled her efforts to revamp airport security culture. She organized workshops on implicit bias, improved the random check selection process, and created clear guidelines for using technology like advanced imaging. She wanted to ensure that every step an officer took could be backed by genuine suspicion, not gut prejudice. Staff morale improved in many quarters. Officer Park and other younger members felt their voices mattered. Experienced officers like Martinez openly acknowledged mistakes of the past and embraced the new approach. With every small success, Janelle felt a growing sense of accomplishment. She also took time to meet with community leaders, ensuring they understood that Hartsfield-Jackson welcomed all travelers equally. By proactively engaging with outside voices, Janelle helped repair trust that had been eroded by incidents like Sampson's. Gradually, passenger complaints about unfair treatment diminished. Despite the positive changes, Janelle found herself in a reflective mood one evening. She sat in her office after hours, the hum of nighttime cleaning crews echoing faintly. On her desk lay the final investigative report on Sampson. She skimmed it, reading about the many people he'd wronged. She also recalled his last words, full of spite and warning. Had she done enough? Had she put the airport's security at risk by focusing so heavily on fairness? That thought lingered, a shadow of doubt. But then she remembered that data random checks were just as effective, if not more, when truly random. She recalled how, in other airports she'd reformed, objective methods led to fewer false accusations and better detection of real threats. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Asha, tablet in hand. Ms. Brooks, just wanted to drop by the updated performance metrics before I head home. She handed Janelle a file. I think you'll like what you see. Janelle flipped through the pages. The rate of passenger complaints had dropped significantly. Officers reported higher job satisfaction, citing clearer guidelines. Efficiency at checkpoints had improved, thanks to less time wasted on unwarranted stops. All of it reaffirmed that she was on the right path. Smiling at Asha, Janelle thanked her and said good night. As she prepared to leave, she glanced one more time at Samson's file. With a quiet sigh, she closed it and placed it in a drawer labeled closed cases. The next chapter of Hartsfield-Jackson's security would be different, she vowed, shaped by lessons learned and by the unwavering principle that protecting the public meant protecting all of the public. A year later, Janelle walked through the bustling concourse she had once surveyed as an outsider. Upgraded technology scanned passengers efficiently. Officers stood at their posts, greeting travelers politely. She felt a sense of pride seeing the operation run smoothly, a testament to a culture that balanced vigilance with respect. She wasn't naive enough to believe one dismissal had eradicated all bias, but she believed in progress, a continuous journey of holding people accountable and challenging assumptions. Every day, she saw small victories: an officer gently assisting a passenger with limited English, a staff member resolving a tense situation with empathy rather than brute force. A voice behind her said, "Ms. Brooks?" She turned to find Tyrese Jackson, the young man Samson had harassed, now sporting a bright smile. "You probably don't remember me, but," she broke into a grin. "I do remember you. How are you?" "Much better. I'm actually here for a connecting flight to London, study abroad," he said proudly. "Just wanted to say thanks. Things feel different here. Safer." Janelle's chest swelled with warmth. This was the real reward. "That's wonderful. Congratulations, Tyrese. Have a great flight." As she watched him go, she thought about the journey. The confrontation with Samson had been fraught with drama, but it led to something meaningful, a place where everyone felt welcomed, and real security measures could shine without the stain of prejudice. In that sense, Samson had been the catalyst for reform, a negative force that spurred positive change. With renewed purpose, Janelle continued her walk through the airport. The everyday symphony of an international hub, announcements, footsteps, distant engines, surrounded her. She smiled, knowing that under her watch, Hartsfield-Jackson remained a place of both safety and respect, living proof that good leadership could triumph over old habits. And that, in the end, was a victory for everyone. Thank you for joining this powerful journey of authority, exposure, and ultimate justice on Dark Stories. We witnessed how Janelle Brooks, initially just another face in the crowd, reclaimed her power to stand up to bias in the vast expanse of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. She proved that genuine security demands more than brute force, it demands fairness, transparency, and unwavering integrity. By exposing Officer Samson's misconduct, she not only upheld her own dignity but also paved the way for a cultural shift that benefited all travelers and staff. If this story resonated with you, please like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to Dark Stories for more dramatic, thought-provoking tales. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss another story. Let's continue championing respect, equality, and real justice wherever we find ourselves. Until next time, travel safe and stay vigilant.